Soviet times, Jews suffered from persecution. It was illegal, basically, to live a Jewish life. It was illegal to gather as Jews. Not only were the synagogues closed, and the schools closed, and the Jewish hospital closed, and all the Jewish infrastructure, but what Jews lost was the memory and the knowledge of what it means to be Jewish.
So I was born in 1987, right before the fall of the Soviet Union, and in the 90s, my family still lived in Ukraine. I myself am a first-generation Russian-speaking Jew living in the States. When my mom was growing up, she experienced a lot of anti-Semitism. She was telling me how she traveled to Lvov and they went to a museum and they were asked to leave because, you know, their last names were Jewish, her friend had a very big nose, and, you know, they were not welcomed. My family left, and on their way out of, out of Odessa, practically everything that they owned was taken away from them.
If you take any sociologist or historian and you explain what the reality was, 70 years where basically Jewish life was forbidden, and you ask that professional to sort of forecast what he expects to happen in the future, most of the assumptions would be that there wouldn't be any future for Jewish life in the former Soviet Union.
I don't think I grew up in a Jewish environment in my home because my parents didn't know what that meant. For my parents growing up in Odessa, they remember they were clearly Jewish. So I think that was their experience. They knew they were Jewish, they couldn't not be Jewish, it wasn't an option. You know, their whole social circle was Jewish, their friends, the people they dated. Well, one of the experiences that my dad had, he had like an aha moment. We were sitting in my Sunday Jewish school celebrating Passover, and Passover was on the table. My dad remembers having Passover at home when he was growing up, but he didn't know why you have Passover, why you have matzah for Passover. And I saw from the corner of my eye that he's sitting and was like, oh, like this makes sense. This is why we had matzah all these years. If I would have asked my parents when they first arrived in America, you know, what is Passover, what is Rosh Hashanah, what do you do on these holidays, they wouldn't have had answers for me because they didn't know. Jewish to them meant that somebody said you were Jewish and you couldn't do certain things. It was almost like a challenge.
Ведь во все ночи мы ни разу не макаем в нашей пище, а в эту ночь макаем дважды. Ведь во все ночи мы ужинаем.
Hours before the Seder begins, people gather at the entrances to be sure of a seat. Many new faces are seen. Faces of young people acknowledging their Jewish identity for the first time. So it is in Leningrad. So it is in Odessa. On the one hand, I feel like everyone. Good that something is materializing, that we can come and celebrate our holiday in peace. On the other hand, this one Seder is not big enough for the number of Jews who have gathered here. The Jewish people is a people which is inseparable from the concept of freedom. Let all who are hungry enter and eat. All who are needy come and celebrate the Passover. This year we are slaves, but next year we shall be free. Azriel, the JDC's partner in Israel, joined the operation, organized the Israeli factories for the baking of matzot and the preparing of kosher Passover food, impossible to obtain in the Soviet Union. The kosher wine, the Haggadot, with Russian translation, were also part of the cargo to be sent. When you look at the map of the Soviet Union and see the distances involved, you can see that an operation of this kind is almost impossible. But the impossible became possible. The cargo and the Israeli emissaries brought Passover to every corner of the Soviet Union. Many Jews required basic explanations about Judaism and the holiday, about candlelighting, blessings, and prayers. Every detail of the holiday, every bit of food and what it symbolizes, every prayer recited, is explained during the Seder.
Элементы мерказиим, которые содержат центральные элементы шел Хаг ха-Песах, праздника Пасхи. Садри манан верабанан веработа.
At this holiday, I feel great enthusiasm and joy because I finally feel myself Jewish. It is now possible to do what before it was forbidden even to think about.
For 70 years, they forced our Judaism out of us, and if not by force, then by fear.
I'm from the generation of people who grow up with the Jewish community because I'm born in 1991 when the communism already fell. So I'm maybe from the first people who grew up entirely in the community. We're a small community, but we are very dynamic, we are growing.
Let's say one of the biggest events that we do has been growing on from 300 people to 700 people.
When I started working for the JDC, I actually realized what real Jewish life is, because it's okay to say Shabbat Shalom on a Friday night to my coworkers, and that's a great thing. I mean, I really feel Jewish here.
My parents, they joined the community because I did. And in the beginning, they really didn't know about Jewish culture, about Jewish holidays. And my mom really wants to be part of our lives. So, you know, she keeps on researching and doing stuff so she can be closer to us.
Being Jewish in the Soviet Union, I had no opportunities to be Jewish. I didn't know what Jewish meant, what it implied, what Jewish history was. And yet we were treated so badly. And you guys have this opportunity now. You are free to be Jewish. You're free to learn, you're free to know everything about being Jewish, and you're free to be friends with other Jews, connect with other Jews all over the world, and help those who need help, and this, which is the most important thing in Jewish thought, that Jews are responsible for each other.